We are live.
We're on?
We are indeed.
Armed and Dangerous. That's a trigger for me, so you got to knock that off.
Is that a trigger word?
Well, the world's full of them. I mean, I guess we all need to find our own, right?
We're so goddamn emotional. We need to just chill out.
Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast. I'm Kevin. That's Brandon. And we catch up with you every week and
Friday.
Talk about all kinds of fun shit that's going on in our lives. Generally with those three categories. Not always, but we'll start off on the Mead front. The thing is with Mead, it's a lengthy process. Time and age does everything for the product. But we're going to be probably racking a little bit tomorrow. We're going to move a couple of batches around, get some additives moved in for our Holly King batch, which will be quite festive right around Christmas. We're going to have hints of juniper, hints of peppermint, and obviously some very good honey that we utilize out of northern Minnesota, I believe, on some clover.
Did we agree? Were we going to put peppercorn in that?
We can. What peppercorn does, it kind of gives everything a little bit of just the smallest amount of, for lack of a better word, smallest amount of fire. It lets you know that there's something there. That really all it is, and out of a 5-gallon batch of Mead, we're talking probably maybe 5 or 6 peppercorns would be plenty. Especially if you're going to be doing really an amendment like that that's going to take 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. That's plenty, and just a limited number of peppercorns. But it gives it a little bit of something that kind of shows up on the end of your tongue, and you credit it to something else. But
right. Well, it helps to accentuate what's there.
Oh, absolutely it does.
It shows up in Troublemaker, shows up in Long Chips.
Well, and it's something, and we utilize it sparingly, because I think it'd be I don't think it'd be a great batch if we were using a couple of dozen peppercorns, but who knows? Maybe hell, who knows? Maybe we'll experiment with some one day. But anyway, that one's coming along. Our batch one, that one's going to get racked tomorrow as well, and then we have a little experimental batch that we're working on for our own usage, and that's what we have coming up for Saturday. So really, I hate to say it, but out of our big three, the Mead, Metal, and MMA, that's kind of the update.
That's why we always start with Mead first.
It only takes about 2 minutes to kind of let you know where things are at. But
if we want to do a straight up Mead podcast, we'd have to wait like every 3 months.
We'd crank out about 4 a year.
But they'd be good. They'd be damn entertaining too.
So the big news, Metal, I guess, news coming off of Metallica already as we're still getting ramped up for their album release later this month.
Again, which I think in the last one I got the name wrong. I called it Atlas Rising, but it's actually Atlas Rise. The song that they released on Halloween. And I got to say, out of the 3 that we've heard, including Atlas Rise, it is the most new sounding. Even though they're borrowing real heavily from old stuff. A lot of Iron Maiden influence in that song.
Like Ride the Lightning kind of stuff almost, right?
Yeah, it's like slowed down Kill 'Em All riffs almost. With a lot of the jugga jigga wuggas. A lot of chugging along.
And are they doing another single release, do you know, before the album release? But that 3 is plenty.
3 is plenty. I did hear from a buddy of mine who were named Nameless, that because I don't know if it's true or not, that Metallica planned to do a video for each song on the album. Now, not before release, even after release.
Did I put up my conspiracy theory last time, or on Metallica and my thoughts on?
No, I think we had that discussion on the side.
And I'm certainly.
Which, by the way, your ideas are echoed by a lot of other people.
Yeah. Well, my thought was, they're doing all this stuff, and you can pick out sounds from different eras of Metallica's long and storied career, and you can go, oh, that one sounds like it's off of Load or Reload. Oh, that one sounds like it's off of Ride Lightning. That one sounds, the only reason a band does something like that, they're doing an homage to themselves, and don't tell me that they don't have the ego to supply that particular pursuit, because I think that's what they're doing.
They know exactly what they're doing.
This, in my opinion, and I could be wrong. Hell, I'd probably put money on the fact I'm wrong. But there is that slight chance that I'm right. this might be their very last album ever.
And if it is, I just want them to go out on top.
Well, at least it wasn't Saint Anger, right?
Well, that could have been the end. But really, what was kind of shitty about that was the Rebirth album. You know, how James went into rehab, came out, changed man, cleaned up, wanted to write songs about his strife. And we got Saint Anger. But I blame Bob Rock for Saint Anger. He can go fuck himself.
So,
appreciate what you did on the Black Album, and I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed Load and Reload. But your Poison nearly destroyed a band.
right.
And thankfully, they got rid of him quickly after that.
I almost kind of wonder if that's not something that might be broached later, some kind of a weird remaster. If this is their last album, and then 5-10 years down the road, then suddenly do a re-release of Saint Anger without that crazy snare sound that they'd had. You know.
I don't think no amount of post-production can fix that sound.
Okay, well.
You'd have to get Lars in there at age, he'd probably be 65 or 70, and re-record the drums of Saint Anger.
But it is funny, though. Really, maybe one of the best pure rock, pure metal bands that are out there right now still doing their thing has actually got me fired up for this next release. And I've never been a big Metallica guy like you have.
Well, I'm a terrible influence on people.
Well, I'm not saying that necessarily, but I mean, it's great because they're experimenting with a lot of their own sound, and that's something I can really appreciate and get behind because it's such a signature sound. Now, it doesn't take you more than a few seconds to hear something go, oh, that's Metallica.
You know a Metallica song about 10 seconds in. You know it's a Metallica song. You might not know which one, but you know it's a Metallica song.
The other one on the metal side of it, and it's kind of something I've been listening to this week, and I would argue it's not metal, but if you follow iTunes and their categorization, it's a band that's been around for a long, long time, and but nonetheless they stick them under the metal section, and there's no reason for them to do so. It's Wardruna.
Ah, yes.
If you're looking for it, and I would encourage you to do so, Wardruna. It's pagan chant music is what it is.
Fans of TV series Vikings will be familiar with these people, as not only do they throw some of their tracks on there, they even appear in the show as characters doing their music, which is fucking amazing.
If you're looking at, and the reason I say it's not metal, there's not any electric sounds to be found. I mean, I don't care if it's guitar, bass, or whatever. It's chant music with a drum. I mean, they have a couple of also more traditional, instrumentation involved in it. But the only reason I bring that one up, they just had a new record come out, their third in a trilogy, and it came out like a week and a half ago. So, but nonetheless, though, I would check it out if I were you. And the cool kids are doing it, and at least if we're talking about the two in this room. And
that's really all that matters.
It's Wardruna, so check that out.
Some broads in that band too, pretty good looking.
So moving on, do we have anything else in the middle?
Gosh, I'm sure we do, but for what we have coming up next, that's really the only things of note.
Yeah, it's time for us to get the MMA portion of it, obviously. We've gone a month without anything going on in the UFC. That's not to say there's been nothing going on in the world of MMA. RFA, they've still got their stuff. Legacy, they haven't joined those two organizations yet. They're still doing their own individual things. I guess Bellator, if you're that hard up. But as far as the UFC goes, they haven't done anything in a month, and we're looking at the card for tomorrow night. What is the
Ultimate Fighter Latin America finale?
So that's what's coming up tomorrow.
And really, the big reason why we also had a huge layoff on fights, since we haven't really had any since October 8th, 2004, was because the card with Ricardo Lamas and BJ Penn, which was going to happen the week after that card, got canceled because BJ Penn wasn't able to throw down due to having to do overtime at Walmart, being the smiley face over there.
Well, I was wondering if he wasn't doing like guest appearances for Mr. Clean.
Well, you got to expand as you get older. Sometimes you don't want to smile all day.
But and on top of that, I might be wrong in this, but I think the UFC that long layoff was part of a plan because they're trying to make 205 the biggest card the promotion has ever seen. You have to rob Peter and Paul in order to be able to put on that kind of a promotion. And so to really kind of have that layoff makes a lot of sense. And by the way, people are complaining about 206 having a lack of depth. Well, what are you going to do? They're robbing every title holder or everybody that's really in the top 5 across the board. They're robbing it in order to make 205 that card at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and they do have some pretty good pay-per-views coming up after that. The Cormier Rumble fight.
I said, but the people are complaining. 206 has been it's not a great card. Well,
it's not a great card because George St. Pierre isn't on it. That's people's big complaint.
Yeah, is George St. Pierre ever going to fight again in the UFC?
I'd never say never. I mean, Brock came back.
Yeah. to a lot of really big fanfare about a week after 200.
Yeah, and then it's almost like that fight never happened.
Yeah. Like, oh, he was using drugs again. Ah, well.
Back to wrestling.
But, yes, you got 206, and 207 is going to be big just because it's the Rousey card. And then they're trying to close out the year with a really big one there. I mean, it's some new ownership, and they're trying to make a splash, and I understand that, but there's not that much star power in the UFC to be able to keep putting on pay-per-view events. 3 of them in the space of, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. It's kind of crazy. You're really kind of robbing 2017 at this point.
Well, we have 2 months left in the year. We have 6 title fights coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite a bit for a span of 60 days.
So let's talk about the fight night coming up tomorrow. And that's actually, I was a little shocked. It's in Mexico, and they don't have Cain Velasquez on it, who, by the way, is from California.
Because he's not Mexican. Oh no, this is actually going to be in the Philippines. Oh no, I'm looking at Llama's pen card.
No, that's Mexico City. I thought you got me second guessing myself. All right, there's very little to get into on the early prelims that are going to be on Fight Pass, except for one, the Sam Alvey fight. That's your guy.
Smiling Samuel K. Alvey. I'm not sure if K is his middle initial, but it should be. That guy, he, with his mouth alone, has been able to win fans over just based on attitude. That, and he's had some awesome finishes. He ran into a bit of a roadblock there. Really, I think, derailed his momentum pretty significantly when he met Derek Brunson, and Brunson pounded him into submission.
Right.
Because he'd never faced a guy that would just bum rush him and try to take him out within a minute. It was usually a fight, and he'd wait for the guy to make a mistake, and he'd capitalize on it. Then he lost to Theodoro.
Which that one was a really disappointing fight there.
Yeah, a fight that you and I think, both thought would have been a show stealer for the McDonald Thompson fight night. It was not. Theodoro made that fight very boring, but still enough to win the fight.
And nothing against Elias Theodoro, because I understand it, you fight. He's a point fight. Let's face facts. The guy fights to win rounds, and doesn't necessarily care if there's a lot of flash to it or not. His flash is on his walk-in and when he leaves the octagon after a win.
Yeah, and every fight Sam Alvey has won in the UFC has been a finish. His losses, 2 of them went the distance. Brunson finished him. All his victories, though, came by finish.
Yeah.
He's not a guy that likes to stay in there for 15 minutes.
He's going to be up against somebody I've never heard of, Alex Nicholson. I mean, it's not because of the fact that I have anything against the guy, but it's a limited number of fights within the promotion. He's got a 7-2 MMA record.
And he doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Well, that can be
Which
telling.
means, and that'd be a weird name for a Mexican dude they found to just work on this card to fill it.
Right.
Like, oh, your name's Alex Nicholson, and you're from Juarez.
Well, you want to.
You're on the card.
You want to have your star power at the top of every level of it, and that is for the Fight Pass prelims. You got Sam Alvey. This is the second time that he's been the headliner of a Fight Pass prelim.
Yeah, especially with all the success he's had. I mean, he did get derailed there a little bit, but I figure he has enough drawing power to be a little higher on any card.
Well, that's where he's been relegated to at the moment. I mean.
By the way, Alvey knockout in the second.
Yeah, I have no doubt. At first or second, I mean, I think it's going to be over pretty quick. just because I've never heard of the guy before. He's not an Elias Theodoro by any stretch. He's not Derek Brunson. So then we move into the prelims, and I hate to say it, there aren't a lot of guys. I mean, I've heard of Henry Bionis. I couldn't recall a single fight he's had. I've heard of Eric Montano. He's fighting Max Griffin. I've heard of Marco Beltran, but he's fighting Joe Soto. That was really the first one in the prelims where I go, oh, okay, I know Joe Soto.
Outside of Sam Alvey, of course.
Well, yeah, but that's early prelims. I mean, that's fight pass prelims.
Not a lot of people are going to break it.
In threes. You got your fight pass prelims. You got your Fox Sports 1 prelims, and then you got your main card.
And really, your most hardcore are the ones that catch fight pass prelims.
But Joe Soto, he was the one that stepped up short notice, fought T.J. Dillashaw. A lot of people still think he won that fight. I don't know. But he's looked pretty good. He's got a 16-5 record, but he's fighting against Marco Beltran, who I'm sure is probably the got to be the national favorite, being out of Mexico City. Or at least that's an assumption.
Yeah. The champion of Mexico City is what I believe he's called.
And then you've got Eric Perez fighting Felipe Arantes, and both those guys they've got extensive MMA records. That one might actually be one where a lot of people aren't familiar with either fighter, and it might very well really come out with an interesting kind of a result there. That might be one of those where you get a fight of the night off of something you weren't expecting, or it might very well be a 3-round decision.
It'll be just the fight that you're waiting to finish up before the main card starts.
We have a couple of ladies at straw weight. Probably not going to see a finish, would be my assumption here. That's Alexa
I don't
Grasso.
see Joanna's name anywhere.
Alexa Grasso and Heather Jo Clark. You got Alexa Grasso, who's got an 8-0 record. It's in Mexico City. I don't necessarily see where Heather Jo Clark comes off a winner of a 7-5.
Purple belt in BJJ, which really, I guess, everybody has a BJJ belt of some color these days.
Didn't I say that would have meant something 10, 15 years ago?
Her last fight was actually with Carolina, who's battling Joanna at 205.
Heather Jo Clark?
Yeah. To which Carolina made some pretty short work.
Right. Well,
after that, then she fought Rose. Forgot about Rose.
Newman Nunez.
Not going to fight for the title, that's for sure.
Yeah, so Alexa Grasso, undefeated. I expect that'll probably continue. The one after that is where things start getting really, really interesting, because Beneil Dariush has really kind of been, he's been kind of a world killer in many, many ways. This guy is a little more skilled than anybody in the UFC kind of gave him credit for. He's starting to give the respect now. Now he is. He's got a fight coming up. He's going to be fighting Rashid Magomedov at the lightweight. But so you got a 13-2 guy in Beneil fight against Magomedov at a 19-1 record. That is going to be purely a showdown of great lightweights that have a lot of ability, both on the ground and stand-up.
Right. The maybe not title implications, but certainly a fight to put on the card that will really pull people in.
Well, you start, and if you're Dariush, you start working your way up. This would be one of those fights that kind of really starts getting you right there, just on the outside looking in the top 5.
Yeah, and really fighting on an Ultimate Fighter finale card is kind of a big deal. Maybe not as big as it used to be back in the day, but because there are Ultimate Fighter finales, it seems to be every 2 months now.
Right.
Because we got to have one for every country. Which I do believe they're going to put a stop to that. This new regimen is going to, I hear they're going to take a big chunk out of the Ultimate Fighter budget.
Oh, yeah. No, that's absolutely right.
Which I think is the right call. I think you're really bleeding money having the Latin America, the Japan, and all that jazz. Have the one show, but base them around them here.
After that, we've got another lightweight fight, Martin Bravo against Claudio Puellas.
Ultimate Fighter finale.
Right. Oh, and that one is the finale, right?
Team Liddell v. Team Griffin. Which Bravo is Team Griffin, I believe, and Puellas is Liddell.
I mean, respectable records by both. I mean, granted, the majority of these are all going to be amateur fights, but 11-0 by Martin Bravo and 8-1 by Claudio Puez. I don't really know where to come down on that. I'm uneducated on those particular fighters and what happened with the Ultimate Fighter on that. But yeah, an Ultimate Fighter finale. You actually have a great observation on that, and or at least you have had over the years, on when it comes down to trying to pick fighters, pick who you think is going to win a fight.
Yeah, well, if it's a coin toss and you're getting a guy that's that's an Ultimate Fighter winner, especially if it's a later season winner, if you're going 50-50 anyway, always go with the Ultimate Fighter winner.
And you've been rarely ever wrong on that.
Of course, I quit going on the Rashad Evans train because, well, that dude should be retired by now.
Sure.
Fighting at middleweight, I don't think that's going to work.
Right.
That's a tale for another time.
The next one up is an interesting one, and you're the one that actually came across this information. I mean, Ricardo Lamas, he's a dangerous guy at featherweight at 145, but the interesting scandal actually is not about Ricardo Lamas this time. It's actually about the guy he's fighting.
The Bellator dude making his debut.
The Charles Oliveira.
Oh, the 9 pound.
Yeah, that
the 9 pounds overweight. 5th time he has come in overweight for a fight. And I believe this one might be the most egregious, because they had to bump it up a whole other weight class just to make the fight happen.
9 pounds. Okay, now if you're 9 pounds over and we're talking light, heavy, or heavyweight, what are you going to do? I mean, the penalty is the same. But at 145, you've got to come in under 150, at least make it look like you're trying.
Exactly. Actually, the first one he failed was actually his worst. He came in at 159.
Oh, okay. So only 14 pounds then, but
14 pounds overweight for a featherweight title. or for a featherweight fight.
And then see a weird trend among people with the last name of Oliveira coming in way overweight.
And it doesn't get too fact. It doesn't get too bad after that. One came in at 146.2. So I mean, not superly egregious, but it'll still lose you money.
Sure.
146.5, 150.5. And this latest one, 155.
So at what point does Dana White or somebody step in and say, sorry, but you're going to have to go up to lightweight?
It almost seems like he struggles to make lightweight. Because, I mean, he looked like he was cutting serious weight before he weighed in. No. And it came in at 155. This dude might just have to chunk up for welterweight.
It's got to be the last time we see him trying to make featherweight. Got after that, and this is the co-main event, you got Diego Sanchez fighting against Marcin Held. I've never heard of this guy, but he's got a 22-4 record.
He is a Bellator standout, making his UFC debut. One of his recent losses was actually to Will Brooks, a fight that we might actually get to see a rematch in the UFC now.
Right. Depending
on how this debut... I mean, Diego Sanchez is no easy debut fight.
Right.
Just based off the hype he brings alone. I hope he brings all his crosses with him.
Well, if it was in Albuquerque, I know that no matter how badly the Diego Sanchez got beat down, he'd be the winner.
I know, man. Albuquerque fans travel well. They might have headed south, and we might have a real problem.
And then Rafael dos Anjos.
Which, by the way, I'm going to back Marcin Held in that fight. Probably by decision.
I don't know him well enough to even make to make a call on that one. I guess I'll probably agree with that. I guess. I mean, there's no big disparity between some of their height. Anything else? It may be an interesting fight there. I don't know. Diego Sanchez. Sometimes you just don't know which Diego you're going to get. Rafael dos Anjos fighting against Tony Ferguson.
El Cucuy.
It's going to be interesting with that one because Dos Anjos isn't he's not Fabricio Verdum. His fan base in Mexico is limited at best. Tony Ferguson has been, this isn't his first go-round fighting in Mexico City.
Yeah, not only that, this guy is on a hell of a tear. He is just shutting fools down. He has won 8 in a row. Lost to Michael Johnson back in May of 2012. Finished Tebow. Finished Abel Trujillo. Finish Kakuno, finish Barbosa. 2 Darce chokes in a row in his last fight for finishes.
Wow.
I mean, he is a motivated individual. He is one hell of an Hawaiian to have on a card.
Well, the thing is, and you got Dos Anjos, who really, I'm not going to say he's struggled of late. Well, you know what? Actually, that'd be the right call. He lost his belt to Eddie Alvarez, who then, as we know, is now going to be the 205 main event against Conor McGregor.
Hell of a jump.
But and that was that RDS's last fight?
Yeah, this is his rebound fight after the Alvarez fight.
See, it's been a long time since he lost that title, so that's why I had to ask. I don't know. I think really his strength is his wheelhouse is to keep it standing and throw those heavy hands.
And keep those leg kicks coming.
Tony Ferguson, though, is no stranger to that kind of activity. We know that he's going to want to close the range, and he's going to want to get in there, and he's going to want to take it to the ground because that's where his strength is at. You know, with Dos Anjos, when he was supposed to fight Conor McGregor, he had talked about how great that his ground game was. He was going to be able to fend off, everything that way. He's fighting a whole different kind of animal right here.
Yeah, and Tony's not really going to want to take it to the ground immediately. Unless the leg kicks start adding up, then he's going to try to figure something else out. And he's going to eat a few of them to do his game plan because he's an in-your-face type of guy. I
got Ferguson by, I'll play it safe, say by decision.
It's weird. After that Alvarez fight, I mean, before that, we thought this guy was going to be lightweight champ for a very long time.
Sure.
And Eddie Alvarez came and just completely fucked that entire dream up for RDA. I got to agree with you. I think Tony is going to catch RDA and knock him out.
Well,
and I think he's going to do it pretty early.
Be 2 in a row against the former champ. And
how do you go against a guy who's won 8 in a row, and I think all but 1 of 2 of them are finishes? And he's fighting top-tier guys.
That one, I mean, obviously that one's going to be the... that's the jewel in the crown of coming up for tomorrow night for the fight night out of Mexico City. But Ultimate Fighter finale, and then you get a great co-main and great main event, and we'll see what happens with the co-main. Not so great, but it's fine. But the main event is going to be a showstopper.
Well, we're like starved dogs, man. We're hungry for chingazos.
After a month. Well, that's it. We're kind of a little over our normal mark of where we're aiming for.
Well, really, this now that we are having fight cards on the horizon, they might go a little under 30.
Yeah, we're going to be right around at 30. But nonetheless, though, that's the podcast for the week, I guess. We don't anything else to add?
It'll be sad that you will be out of town Saturday.
Yeah, no podcast next week. I'll be out of town for 205, but we'll be right back and pick it up again in 2 weeks. And we've got really a great-looking second half of 2016 coming up, which we'll probably address here in the next time we get together.
You might just have me rapping solo. You might have a 3-hour podcast for you folks to enjoy next week with just me. Good stuff.
Lord help us all. All right, well, that's the podcast for this week. Enjoy a little bit of Mead, enjoy a little bit of metal, enjoy a little bit of MMA. Or enjoy to your heart's content.
Yeah, I think it's time to go watch some Bellator.
All right, well, Bellator's still fighting, kind of.
Still fighting strong on Spike TV. Check it out, folks.